Now this is a jar of Marmite spread, and this is a Triumph Speed Triple1200 RS. When it comes to taste, you either love Marmite or you hate it. Now it appears that the Speed Triple1200 RS has the same effect. If you're a regular visitor to my channel, then you may have seen my Speed Triple series when I look back at the history of the Speed Triple and compare my 1050S with the 1050 RS and then the 1200 RS. Now when Triumph launched the 1200 RS, they said they had no other plans for producing any more bikes in the Speed Triple range. And a short while later, the RR was announced. But hey, let's move on from that, shall we? As soon as the first images of the RR were released, it created the Marmite Effect, where you either love it or hate it. Now, I'll be the first to raise my hand and say I wasn't convinced. What have they done to the Speed Triple were my first thoughts. But after seeing the bike in person and trying it out for size, I started to change my mind and warm to its looks. But before we get into who I think the RR is aimed at, let me tell you how the bike performs on the road, all thanks to my friends at Triumph Essex who kindly loaned me one for the day. The first thing I should point out is that I don't have a great deal of experience riding sports bikes, and although I have ridden a few, it's the upright riding position which I personally prefer. So when I got off my 1050S and jumped on the 1200 RS, it didn't feel too different and I immediately had a lot of confidence in the bike. The 1200 RR felt totally different to what I'm used to. The bars are clip-ons and positioned much further forward and lower down than the RS. The pegs are further back and higher up, giving a more aggressive, sportier riding position, which felt very cool. But within the first 30 minutes of riding, I knew the riding position wasn't for me. But hey, there are plenty of bikers who prefer the sportier riding position than being upright. As soon as I pulled away, the RR felt like the RS with its smooth but torquey power, which was no surprise as they both share the same 1160 3-cylinder engine. In total, I got through a tank and a half of gas. Unfortunately, I forgot to check the tripometer at the end of the day, but I did have around 5 hours in the saddle. When I left Triumph Essex, I set the rider mode to sports and the suspension to comfort. Now that's a clever thing about the new RR over the RS. It comes as standard with the Öhlins electronically adjustable semi-active suspension. It has 3 basic suspension modes: comfort, normal and dynamic. Each mode is rider adjustable by a flick of a switch should you want to experiment. On the RS and most other bikes, you can adjust your suspension setup to your preference, or better still, get a suspension guy to do it for you. Now, adjusting your suspension will vary depending on the type of bike, your riding style and how you want the bike to handle. But generally, once the suspension is set up, that's it, you leave it alone. Electronically adjustable suspension constantly adjusts the setup as you ride. Compared to my 1050S, the suspension in comfort mode felt really smooth and ironed out the bumpy roads but didn't feel too soft when riding through the bends. Because of the sporty riding position, I wasn't as confident tackling the bends as I was when riding the 1200 RS, but that was just because I wasn't used to leaning forward on the bike. But as the day went on, my confidence grew, although I still didn't want to push the bike too fast into the bends. I was sticking to the speed limit, which felt fast enough on some of the sharp turns, to be honest. Like the RS, my favourite feature was the shift assist, which I absolutely love. It's so incredibly smooth and makes knocking up through the gears effortless. Triumph really have nailed it. Acceleration. As you can imagine, with the 1160 engine, it's not lacking a bit of oomph. When it comes to overtaking, you don't have to think twice. You see a sensible gap, twist the throttle, and you've passed the traffic. I was making a conscious effort to keep within the speed limit, especially as it takes me ages to blur the speedo when editing. But it wasn't easy, and I found myself just a few miles an hour over the speed limit before I knew it. The front and rear brakes are linked and have incredible stopping power and are certainly more superior to my 1050S brakes, which I instantly noticed when I jumped back on my bike, and I thought my brakes were good. The link braking system means that you apply the front brake and it automatically applies a touch of back brake too. Now I did have an annoying squeak from the rear brake when I touched the pedal, but I'm sure a bit of copper grease will sort that out. Once I got onto the dual carriageway, the RR effortlessly cruised along. The cruise control was also a dream, and once in third gear I could touch a button to lock in my current speed and it would just keep it there. Cafe Racer style fairing really came into its own at high speeds. I noticed a difference compared to my naked 1050S almost straight away. Although it's not a full fairing, it certainly does a great job keeping the headwind off your chest. One thing I did notice halfway through the day, and that was that my wrists were aching, but that's probably because I'm not used to that tucked up riding position with my weight being forward. Let's talk about looks, and this is where the Marmite Effect comes in. Many of my Instagram friends absolutely love the design of the new RR and think it's a beautiful bike, but others don't. The most common comments I hear are, where does this bike fit in the marketplace and who is the bike aimed at? Well, for me, it's about how sexy does the bike look and the initial attraction. Then you wonder, what's the riding position like and how does the bike handle? I know some bikers who don't care about looks, they just want a practical, reliable bike that fits the purpose. But I'm not convinced that anyone who is seriously looking to buy the Speed Triple1200 RR thinks like that. If the RR has grabbed your attention, then my advice would be to take one out for a test ride. But be warned, as you will probably find your bank account around £18,000 lighter by the end of the day, as it's really hard to fault this bike, especially if you have already fallen head over heels in love by its looks. And if you're not convinced it's the bike for you, then there's always the Speed Triple 1200 RS, which personally would be my choice out of the two. So what are your thoughts on the Speed Triple 1200 RR? Do you think it's the most beautiful bike ever made, or is it really not for you? Please leave a comment, as I love to know what you guys think. And as always, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe, like and comment.